Embroidery design placement basics. Now, first of all, I want to thank you all for taking the time to attend this presentation tonight about the embroidery design placement basics. I know it takes time, and I love to be able to teach you, and it just gives me a thrill when I know that people actually show up. So that's pretty cool. Let me ask you a question. Do you get confused as to where the right placement should be for a design on a garment? Now, during this presentation, I'm going to be talking about many different design placements on various types of garments. And obviously, I can't cover all of them during this presentation, but I'm going to be talking about the following items: t-shirts, polo shirts, dress shirts, jackets. I'm going to talk just a smidge about sweatshirts, infant onesies, robes, bags, and caps. Before we go any further, I just want to let you know who I am. If you don't know already, I'm Joyce Jagger, the embroidery coach, and I help embroidery business owners shift their business into high gear. Through online embroidery business training and one-on-one coaching, I help you avoid pitfalls. I help you create a profitable pricing structure, and I show you easy steps to follow on your path to success. I do a lot of training in all areas of running your embroidery business. And I've been in the embroidery world now for 40 years, and I go out to many embroidery businesses and help them get on the right track so they can increase their quality and make more money. I had my own multi-head embroidery shop for over 20 years, and I sold it after I was having some challenging health issues. And then after retiring, I decided to get into the consulting and training business to make it easier for embroiderers to get started. I just hate to see embroiderers struggling. I write for Wearables magazine, and I do a lot of shop makeovers, and I'm the author of the book, The Truth About Embroidery Business Success. And I now have a training center in my home where I bring in students to teach them how to get started with their embroidery business or help them get to the next step with their current embroidery business. And as I said before, I also go out to many embroidery businesses and train them or their operators at their locations. Now, does this sound familiar? You're afraid of getting the design in the wrong spot. You hoop it and go over it a dozen times to make sure that it is straight or that it's not in the wrong spot. Do you spend way too much time in the placement process? I know myself, I would hoop a shirt and have several people try it on to check it out to make sure that it was okay, but it looked different on each and every person. And this was extremely frustrating. I finally came up with a chart that worked out good for most people, and I've stuck with that chart for several years. And I now have updated that chart, and you're going to be seeing a lot of the results of that tonight. Now you can go online, and there's a lot of placement charts for many different types of garments and linens, but most of it, they're not specific. And it's up to you to create the perfect placement chart that's going to work for 99% of your items. And many times, you have to figure it out by the type of the garment, the lines of the garment, the size of the garment, and the basic construction of it. But it is much easier when you have a basic guide that you can follow. Basic guidelines. Now there's some basic guidelines that need to be followed with many variables that you need to be aware of. And this works for infant garments all the way up through the larger adult sizes. Now the placement of a monogram or an embroidery design on a garment is subject to many variables. Now there was a time when tradition was very important, but in today's world, this is not always a big factor. And for the most part, placements are all over the place. And when you work with the basics, you cannot go wrong. And keeping it simple is always the best way to work with clients. Your customer's preference always needs to be taken into consideration, but for the most part, the customer is trusting in you to make that right decision because you are the professional with the experience. And it is best to make placement suggestions, and then the customer should be responsible for making the final choice. If the shoulder seam is not in the normal position, lay the garment down flat. Run your hands over the garment to make sure that nothing is folded under, and measure from the top of the fold at the neck edge. Now, if a garment is slightly higher on one side at the neck edge than on the other side, use the higher side for the correct measurement. Do not measure from the armholes. This may not be the same length on both sides of the garment, especially on t-shirts, sweatshirts, and lower quality garments. The center front is determined in various ways depending on the garment. If it is a sweatshirt or a t-shirt, fold the garment in half, matching up the shoulder seams at the neck edge. Do not follow the side seams. One side may be higher than the other, and the garment will center on the body at the neck. Measure from the folded edge over to the center of the design. Now, a placket shirt or jacket should be measured from the center of the buttons, the zipper, the snaps, or the flap. Now, I'm going to talk about many different variables here. Now, there's many factors to be taken into consideration when placing logos on the left or right chest of shirts, jackets, and sweaters. Now, here are a few situations that can really cause hooping placements to be adjusted. Attention to all the detail is extremely important when you are placing on your logo, on either the left or the right chest or on any garment. Are there any diagonal, horizontal, or vertical lines in the area that the logo would normally be placed? The design may have to be moved to the left, to the right, up, or down according to how the seams are laid out. And you want to discuss these options with your customer. He or she needs the final say-so in this placement. If they say it's your decision, then it's your decision. But you can see by each one of these garments that the logo is, it may not be in the exact same spot that it normally would be. Are there any inside zippers? The design may have to be moved over to avoid the zipper. Sometimes you can hoop over the edge of the zipper, but not always. And you want to try to avoid this if at all possible. Are there any inside pockets? The design may have to be moved over to avoid the pocket. Sometimes it will have to be moved to the other side of the jacket. Again, you want to inform your customer about this issue. Is there a removable lining? If so, remove it before you hoop your jacket and make sure that the facing is not caught in the hoop. Are there any stripes? If there's a stripe, you must make sure that you hoop according to the stripe, even if it appears to be slightly crooked. It really doesn't matter what type of garment it is when you have stripes. And when hooping, you must line the stripe up with the placement center guidelines in your hooping frames. Now, here are two examples that must be perfectly lined up with stripes. This striped golf shirt here, if your logo isn't lined up perfect with this stripe, it's going to look very, very crooked. Even if it is straight, you cannot worry about the pocket or the blacked edge here. You can only worry about the stripe. That is your focal point. Same with these shirt cuffs. You can see how each one of them lines up exactly with the pattern of the stripe. And if it isn't, it shows up like a sore thumb. is there what is called an easy access zipper inside. Now, these zippers are placed inside the lining for you to be able to embroider the outside shell of the jacket without having to go through the lining. And most of these are very difficult to use. Many times they're impossible because of their placement or the size of the zipper. And like I said, most of these are very difficult to use. If they are not easy to work with, embroider through the lining as if it were not there. Now, some of these access zippers make the hooping a real hassle, and they're just not cost effective. But again, you want to make sure that you discuss this with your customer. If he has no issue with you going through that pocket or the zipper, not the pocket, the zipper. If he has no plans for anything on the inside or that just doesn't bother him, then don't worry about it. But again, you want to make sure that you discuss it with your customer. Is the lining larger and wants to bunch up? Make sure that you smooth it out. Sometimes you have to pin it down to ensure that it is straight and not bunched. If a name is going to be placed across from the logo will go on the left and the name on the right. And make sure that the name is centered with the logo. If there is an outside pocket, you must place the logo in line with the pocket, never in line with the placket of the shirt. You can see right here, I have this ruler laying right against the placket of the shirt. And you can see how crooked this pocket is. I drew a line across the top of the pocket so that you could easily see it. So you can't go by the line of the placket. You have to go by the line of the pocket. If you don't, the embroidery is going to look crooked. Now the logo should never extend out past the edge of the pocket, and it must be centered with the pocket. You can see right here. My fingers are sort of in the way to the edge, but you don't want to go out past the edge of the pockets. If you've got a lot of lettering that's going there, then do it in 2 lines. If there's a pocket on the left side and the logo is too large to go above the pocket, place the logo on the right side. Make sure that the logo on the right side is centered with the pocket on the left. And if there is a logo or lettering on the shirt or jacket already and you have to add an additional line, line it up according to the line that already exists, even if it is in fact crooked. T-shirts and polo shirts. Now the most popular placement for a t-shirt or a polo shirt is the left chest. But you also have the option of the sleeve in, the top of the sleeve, the locker patch on the top back neck, and if the shirt is used for a bowling shirt, it can be a full back placement, such as a sweatshirt full back placement. And here is a typical of what you would find for a left chest. Now, if you were trying to go according to a chart online, they would say 7 to 9 inches down from the left shoulder seam, centered between the pocket and the side seam, or 3 to 5 inches from the center. Now, I'm asking you, how in the world are you supposed to really figure this out? To me, that is crazy. Now, actually, on the shirt, the center of the design should fall between the edge of the collar seam and 1 inch over, right in here. Now, you can't see where it's sewn, but anywhere from that edge over 1 inch. It's all going to depend on the size of the shirt and the style. Now, for a men's large shirt, this would be 8 1/4 inches down from the neck and 3 3/4 inches over from the center of the buttons. And for a lady's large, it would be 7 1/4 inches down and 3 1/2 inches over from the center of the buttons. And for a youth large, it would be 5 1/4 inches down and 3 1/2 inches over from the center. And I have all of these laid out on new placement charts. That way you have no guesswork. Now, if you're working with a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, you will need to fold your shirt in half to find that center line, but the placement will be exactly the same as the polo shirt if you are placing a design on the left chest. Now, these measurements are to the center of the design or the monogram on the left or right chest. And if you're going to add a name, like I said before, you want to place it directly across opposite side of the shirt and have it centered with the design. So it would be right straight across here and centered with the center of this design. The logo usually goes on the left and the name on the right. Now the next is our locker patch placement. The top of the design is placed 2 to 3 inches down from the collar edge, depending on the size of the garment and the tag sewn in the back. You know, for youth garments, you're going to be about 2 inches down, and if it's an adult, it's going to be about 3 inches down. And again, if it has a tag inside, you do not want to sew through this tag. If the tag is in the way, you must move the design to a lower spot. Sleeve in placement. The bottom of the logo should be about a ½ inch up from the edge of the seam, if it's a rib on the bottom here, or if it is a hem, then it's going to be about a ½ inch up from the actual hem. And if you're sewing a military patch on the sleeve, you're going to sew it about from 1 inch to 2½ inches down from the shoulder. Usually a military patch is sewn right 1 inch down. Full front or back placement. The top of the design on a t-shirt, if you're going to be putting it on a full front, is about 2 inches down for an infant or a onesie. It's going to be about 3 inches down for a youth garment and about 4 inches down for an adult garment. And again, I have that all laid out on a chart. The top of the design is always measured from the seam where the rib neckline and the body of the t-shirt are sewn together. And if the customer would like to see it further down, then place it where the customer is requesting it. Dress shirts. Now there's several placements for a dress shirt, but the most popular is the left chest or the sleeve cuff. Now, however, you have the option of the top of the sleeve, and if it has a pocket on it and the logo is small enough, you can put it above the pocket. If not, it needs to go on the right side of the shirt. Top of the sleeve or a pocket placement. Now the top of the sleeve, the top of the embroidery should be down 3 to 4 inches down from the shoulder seam here. And if it's a raglan sleeve, it's going to be 7 to 11 inches down, depending on the size of the shirt, okay? If it's a youth size, it's not going to be any more than 9. It may be a little bit shorter than that. And if it's an adult shirt, it's going to be about 11 inches down because it measures all the way from the edge of the collar. And then if a shirt has a pocket and the customer wants a monogram on it, the top of the monogram is placed 1/4 inch from the top of the pocket in the exact center. Now, this lettering looks a little bit big on this because I really couldn't get it any smaller. But the lettering, if you put a monogram on a pocket, it is very, very small. It's like 1/4 to 3/8 inch high. Men's or ladies' shirt cuffs. A finished monogram should fall in the center of the person's hand as they are wearing the shirt right over their watch. Most men's monograms are placed on the left cuff, but if they wear their watch on the right hand, then the monogram needs to be on the right cuff. Now the bottom of the monogram is sewn 1/8 inch up from the top stitching, right in here. This right here is the bottom of the cuff. This is just my border on the picture. This is the bottom of the cuff, and this is the top stitching on the cuff. If you're placing a logo on the cuff, then you're going to move it up closer to the center. The exact placement depends on the size of the logo. I've done many logos on sleeve cuffs, and the majority of them are right in the center. Jackets. Jackets have many placement possibilities. Now, the most common is the left chest, but you also have the full back, the full front that is split for center opening, the top of the sleeve or vertically down the sleeve, and even on the edge of the front pocket. Now, the basics of jacket left chest placement is between the seam edge of the collar, right up here, and 1 inch over, okay? The youth sizes, it's going to be about a 1/2 inch over, and on the adult sizes, it's going to be like 1 inch over. Again, it depends on the construction of the jacket. And as a general rule, the logo is placed on the left chest with the name going under the logo on the left chest or on the right chest directly across from the logo on the left chest. And the name should be, again, should be centered with the logo. Now, if you have a pocket inside of with the zipper on it, or the port pocket that you have to hoop inside of on the left chest, you may need to adjust where the placement of the logo is going to be. And it's not a good idea to hoop through the port pocket, again, unless it's an impossible situation. And again, talk it over with your customer. Full jacket back design placement. The top of the full back design is placed about 4 inches down from the seam edge. And if there's only one line of lettering, you may want to move it down a little bit further. It's going to be centered over the shoulder blades. And if there's a hood on the jacket, it's going to be about 2 inches lower. And it usually figures out, if you've got a full back design, it usually figures out where the center of the logo is about 11 inches down. But again, that just depends on the exact height of the logo. But if you keep in mind that the top of the logo should be about 4 inches down from the neck edge, then you can't go wrong. That's the basic placement. Sleeve number placement. Now, the top of the number should be about 3 inches down from the shoulder seam. And again, if it's a raglan sleeve, it should be about 11 inches down. And if you're stacking numbers on top of each other, such as a 23, and then under the 23 you place another number, such as a 54, place the second number a 1/2 inch under the first number. And make sure that they line up straight. And the front pocket placement. This can be a name or a graduation year, a sports position, or anything you want it to be. We did a lot of embroidery on pocket edges like this. Now, sweatshirt placement. I don't have any pictures for sweatshirt placement. I will have, but I just wanted to talk about it for a second. The sweatshirt has many different placements. It can be on the left chest, full center back, full center front, top front, just below the neckline seam, or vertically down the sleeve, and horizontally at the top of the sleeve. And if it is a hooded sweatshirt, it can be on the hood in the back, or it can be on the hood at the top, on the side of the hood, or even centered on the pouch in the front of the sweatshirt. And again, I will be having pictures for those. Now, a onesie. Now, onesies are a garment that many people really have an issue with. And you can do a left chest placement or a full front placement. And the most popular is the full front. Now, the top of the design should be about 2 inches down from the neckline. And if the customer would like it to be a little lower, then that's their choice and it will work. And many people will add a very large design to fill up the entire front of a onesie, but you must take into consideration if they are going to be wearing pants over the onesie, then you've got to move it up a little bit or shorten the design. You want to make sure you ask your customer about this. They may not even be thinking about it at the time. And the reason that I'm thinking about it is because we have a couple of babies in our family, so I really thought about that one. The robe, left chest logo or monogram. Bathrobes always seem to be an issue when it comes to placement. And when I did my first robe, it was a real puzzle to me because I realized how simple it really can be, but I didn't know at the time. I tried on the robe, I tried it on several people and tried to get it lined up straight, and I had a horrible time. And then I realized that all you have to do is lay it out flat and fold it as if you were wearing it and put a normal left chest placement on it, the same as you would for a sweatshirt or a jacket. And it's very simple. So you just lay it out flat like this, measure down, and the center of the logo is the same as it is on a left chest for a jacket. Bags. Now there's many placements and possibilities for bags. And it all depends on the type that it is, but it can be at the top, it can be at the center front or the side. And many customers will want to have the front side with the customer's name on the top, the logo on the side, like this, and a number on the end. Now, my number doesn't look great, but it was the best that I could do for this, and at least you get the idea. And then you can put logos, you can, you know, it's up to you. It's up to whatever the customer wants, I should say. And then on a backpack, the backpack, you usually have about 3 different locations. And sometimes you only have one location, depending on how the backpack is constructed. And there's no way that you can say that a logo, name, or a monogram is going to go in a certain location on the backpack without seeing the actual bag. You can show the customer your possibilities and limitations on the particular product. Caps and visors. Now, caps have many design placements. The newest and the most popular at this right time is centered on the left front panel. The logo is centered inside of this panel on the cap. Now, you will hoop the cap as normal, but you will set your starting point to be in the center of the cap. You want to measure over from the center seam of the cap to the starting point in the center of the logo. Now, inside of the cap section of the training center, I show you exactly how to create a cap grid. And this is one instance where it will come in very, very handy. If your caps are different sizes, you're going to need to reset that point for each size. And what you would do would be to do all of your larges together. That way you would make sure that you had them all correct. Now, the standard placement is in the center front seam. And the bottom of the logo should be no closer than 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch from this bottom seam on the front. Your design cannot be any closer, like I said, than 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. Now, you do not want to embroider a design that is more than 2 1/4 inches tall. It all depends on the cap. Some caps will not take a design over 2 inches. And you have low profile caps and you've got high profile caps. And sometimes on a high profile, you can go as high as 2 1/2 inches. But I try to keep all of my cap designs to be no more than 2 inches high on an average. And then visors. Now, you have very small space to work with on a visor. On most visors, your design must be no more than 1 inch in height. Sometimes it has to be even shorter. Your size depends on how the visor is made and how tall the front panel is. Cat backs. I know these are strange looking images. It took me a few minutes to try to figure this out, but this is what I got back from the artist, and that's what I'm working with. So this is for the straight backs, and this design is actually sitting just a tiny bit too high on here. It needs to be just a little bit lower, so I'm going to have that corrected. The bottom of your design should be about 1/2 inch up from your seam edge here. You don't want it too high because it doesn't look right. The same with this for the keyhole design. Your keyhole design should be about 1/2 inch up from the edge, and the arch for most cat backs will work at like a 3-inch radius. Now here is a lab coat. Now this was a last minute thing. I had an email that came in, around 4:30, 5 o'clock today. And they wanted to know about placement on lab coats. Now, a lab coat is usually embroidered above the pocket if it has a pocket on it. And you really do not want to go outside of the line of the pocket. And if there's more there than what's going to fit on one line, make it in 2 lines. And if there is no pocket, you're going to use the same left chest design placement that you would for a jacket. Okay? Now let me ask you a question. Is design placement still confusing for you? Do you wish you had a complete guide to use that would make it easy for you to understand? Well, now you will have the capability of downloading it from the website. I will have it uploaded in the website, hopefully by tomorrow. And if not, it's going to be over the weekend. It depends on if I get all of the drawings back. The complete guide will have all the drawings in it that I've shown you tonight with the measurements. This is going to be huge for you. And here are your 2 new placement charts for the left and right chest. One for the sweatshirts, jackets, and sweaters, and one for the t-shirts, polos, and dress shirts. And they start at 6 months and go all the way up to 3XL and above.